Hi, and welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, the show where we discuss a variety of topics including grief, parenting, health and wellness, and relationships. Join us and explore a number of changing perspectives. We're your hosts, Jenni and Josh Brennan. Hey, Jenni.
Hi.
What are you doing?
Technically, I'm working on our.
Yeah, let's talk about how
list.
you're not paying attention at all to recording an episode.
I have synthesized both boys' supply lists for school,
Mm-hmm.
and I have made a list of what we need to check to see if we already have. I was just doing that while you were doing whatever you're doing, getting ready, and you're angry with me.
I'm not angry with
We
you.
need to do another Gottman argument thing.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So we are here. It's episode 38.
Correct.
And we are joined today by a couple of Marvel fans known as Jackson and Jacob. Why don't you guys say hi?
Yo.
Hi.
Okay. So this is an episode we teased last time. By the way, if you haven't checked out episode 37, it is, that was a fun episode. We kind of just riffed for a little while on the stress of summer. We talked a lot about what we did as kids in the summertime. So go ahead and check that out, everybody, if you haven't listened to that yet, episode 37. But at the end of that episode, we talked about what we're going to do today. And today, we are going to do a follow-up episode about our discussion about Avengers and the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this was something we discussed with our buddy. What was that noise?
Jackson.
Yeah, you got to stop doing that, buddy.
Jackson.
This is a follow-up from our discussion we had with our buddy Gerald over at Pop Culture Cosmos. Jenni and I were guests on his show and discussed our immediate reaction to Avengers Endgame, which came out in May. And then we, all four of us, did that Death in the Marvel Cinematic Universe episode, right? I forget how long ago that was, but we were all super excited to see Endgame. We saw it. We loved it. We had, again, a great time with Gerald. So now we were planning to do this sort of follow-up episode, talk about how much we liked the movie, how much it meant to us. You know, our podcast content is we have a lot of grief heavy and loss and death discussion, right? So that's what that's what we started out talking about with the MCU, but there's so many impactful things. It's such an epic saga, the whole story. We decided we'd love to do sort of a follow-up review, and the digital download, DVD, whatever, of Endgame just came out, and we bought it on digital download. So now we own it, but we have not yet watched all the bonus stuff. There's like an hour of bonus stuff, right, Jacob?
An hour, really?
I think it's over an hour, maybe even like an hour and a half of bonus material, like behind the scenes stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Is there an alternate ending? I seem to remember hearing something about
Well, we'll talk about that because
Yeah.
the ending that we see in Endgame wasn't the actual ending that was planned. Initially. It was reshot.
7 though.
There was
7
what?
alternate. There was like a bunch of alternate endings.
A bunch of, I think there might be. So anyway, we have not watched the bonus material, but we're excited about that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Do you have anything else to say about?
I just want to say that we're also being joined by Lola today, who is pacing up and down the hallway, just like I said she would.
Yes, she is.
Told you she wouldn't settle.
I know.
Josh was like, let's just leave the office door open. And I said, she's just going to wander. And we're going to hear her little tippy-tappy feet.
Yeah.
So if you hear them in the background, that's
What
Lola.
that is. But the boy dog is just chilling out,
Yeah, we
which
can't
is
say
nice.
his name. It'll wake him up.
I know, exactly. That's why I said boy dog. So, okay, so should we start talking about Endgame?
Yes.
Awesome. So did we like Endgame? What's your initial reaction? We saw it in the theater. We saw it again recently.
So
Digital
spoilers.
download. Oh yeah, big time. Spoiler alert.
If there had not been what Jacob predicted, I would have hated that movie.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Because we
I
did
hate you for that.
we did the we did the episode before we saw Endgame where we
Yes.
sort of talked about grief in the cinematic universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacob said he really hopes that Cap gets to have his dance.
Yeah.
And so when I could see that was going to happen in this movie, I was like, oh, it is perfect. And then I bawled like a baby. I think I cried like 8 times.
Oh,
in
me
the
too.
theater. So it actually was my favorite MCU movie thus far.
I would say yes. I agree with that. Absolutely. So again, we just wanted to shout out spoilers big time. We're going to talk about the plot and all kinds of stuff we loved about the movie. We're going to talk about, epic moments, deaths, loss, impactful things. But if you live in a closet and you don't know what we're talking about, this is the culmination of basically an 11-year movie journey, starting with Ironman 1 back in 2008, directed by Jon Favreau. How much do we love Jon Favreau?
A lot.
He's excellent. Plays the role of Happy in the MCU, but he directed a couple of the movies and was involved a lot with writing and producing all throughout the MCU.
Ironman.
And he was just in Spider-Man Far From Home. He played Happy again. Happy was in that and was great.
Yeah.
So, Avengers Endgame came out May of 2018, directed by the Russo brothers. How much do we love the Russo brothers? I think their MCU movies are my favorite. Would you agree, Jacob?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't do all of them?
Oh
No,
my
they both
goodness.
just rolled their eyes at me.
I don't think that's going to be the last time that we roll our eyes about some of the stuff that Jenny says this episode.
I think you're going to be rolling your eyes a lot at this side of the
At
desk.
that side of the table,
Yes, me
yeah.
and Jackson. We're
That is
paired
the-
together.
I'm not gonna
The
have it, guys.
ill-prepared, silly side of the recording table
We're
today.
also playing tic-tac-toe.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. Good luck to both
It's
of
your
you
turn.
in
You're
that
up.
game. Written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. Written the screenplay, of course, based on the Marvel Comics by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Also Jim Starlin, who wrote a lot of the Gamora, Drax, Thanos stuff. So we just wanted to shout out the writers and directors for Avengers Endgame. And basically, in my opinion, this might be the perfect movie. As far as plot, the way it made you feel, all that stuff. Would you agree, Jacob?
Yeah.
You think so? It's really in 3 acts. It's really long, but it didn't really feel very long to me. Do you think it felt long, Jenny?
Well, so we watched this in sort of an old-fashioned theater. Most of the theaters around us now have like really comfy reclining seats.
Mm-hmm.
This theater we watched it in did not.
Yeah.
So it was like a really uncomfortable seat. However, the movie was long. It did feel long, but not like, oh, when is this going to be over?
Yeah.
Long. Which I thought was a pretty remarkable feat given we were in uncomfortable seats. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's probably the longest, well, it's probably one of my favorite movies of all time, but probably it was the longest movie I liked that much. Does that make sense? Probably my favorite longest movie. Does that make sense? It just didn't feel very long.
So, what's longer, this or Titanic or the Blue People?
Avatar.
Thank you.
Avatar. I don't know.
Those are long movies.
we
too,
Another
can-
right?
roll line.
We can look that up.
What'd you say?
Another eye roll.
Another eye roll?
Again, yeah.
Because I called them Blue People.
Yes.
I'm really hungry,
Um,
so my brain's not working.
Yeah, I don't know what was longer, but probably all around the same, like 3 hours or so,
Okay.
something like that. Anyway,
That is the
so
last.
Jacob and I did prepare a top 10 list. I have a bunch of notes of stuff I wanted to talk about, and Jenny and Jackson did not. So let me see. I've got a lot of notes. I apologize ahead of time. So in 2012, New York, when the group consisting of Cap, Bruce, Iron Man, and Ant-Man all go to New York to find the 3 stones. We see Bruce go to
The ancient one.
the ancient one,
to get the time stone.
She's the sorcerer supreme, right?
And
To
she-
get the
yeah,
time
and
stone.
she explains how time travel works.
Yes.
That if you were to mess something up, it won't change the timeline that you're in. It'll add a new timeline of like what happens after that.
Timeline
Exactly.
stuff hurts
Your
my brain.
timeline won't change, but if you go back in time and fix it, the second it happens, then it'll go away.
Timeline stuff, I think, annoys a lot of people in a
It
lot of
doesn't
movies.
annoy me. It
Well,
it hurts
it's confusing,
my brain.
and I think time travel stuff possibly can negatively affect somebody's enjoyment of a movie because it kind of messes with the plot a little bit. And I think the Russo brothers did an amazing job saying, don't worry about all that stuff you know about time travel. It's all bull crap or whatever. It's just the movies. This is how time travel works for real. What you do in one timeline won't affect the other timeline.
So they're basically saying the butterfly effect isn't real.
Exactly. Which I think was a great way to handle that plot element. But I wanted to talk about the foreshadowing. She said Sorcerer Supreme, played by, oh my goodness, I love her, but I forget her name. She said to Bruce, once she finally realized that he was legit and Doctor Strange relinquished the stone to Thanos, and once Bruce said that, she was like, what? He did what? So that for that moment, she realized, okay, this is legit, and then gave the time stone to Bruce, and she said to Bruce, we're all counting on you, Bruce. And on the rewatch, I was like, oh my God, that's a great foreshadowing, because who brings everybody back?
Yeah, he does.
Bruce. Bruce brings everybody back
He
from the
forms-
snap.
He forms the blip.
Yeah. So, and that was really cool to see that. That's played by Tilda Swinton, the Asian one. She's awesome. Okay. I don't know if I had any more foreshadowing things. I think I did. But give me just a second to go through this. Do you have anything to say about Easter eggs and foreshadowing, Jenny?
I still am confused about Iron Lad.
Iron Lad.
Oh,
Jacob
explain
can
this
take
one.
that for a second. Go ahead, Jake.
So
Because I did notice that there was that extra person there at Tony's funeral. I do want to talk about Tony's funeral at some point.
Wait.
And I didn't know who he was, and so I asked everybody on the way out because I knew it was probably somebody. So I don't quite understand. So at some point, Iron Lad becomes a character
yes,
in the
so
MCU. He's just the boy that Iron Man gave the mask to. Whatever.
well, okay.
He had his mask. Okay.
When I saw the movie, when I saw Endgame and I saw him, I had no idea who he was, but I looked it up and it was Ty Simpkins, who played Harley Keener from Iron Man 2, I think it was.
3. Iron Man 3.
It legit is the same actor.
Same actor.
Same actor, yeah.
And so it's Harley Keener. And in Iron Man 3, he was the one that like found Tony when he like got in the snow. And then he was the one who like fixed him up and
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah.
But he's also the little boy.
Yeah, he is a little kid.
But he's the little boy from one of the Iron
In
Mans
Iron Man 3.
where like he like swoops into the crowd or something and
No, that's Peter Parker.
That
That's a different-
fans
that's
believe
different.
that's Peter Parker.
No,
That's
no. Russo's confirmed it.
the Russos confirmed it.
Yeah.
oh, that's
I
really
forget,
sweet.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, and he becomes Iron. I don't know if it's a theory that he becomes Iron Lad or if it's real in the comics. I'm not really sure about that.
Okay. All right, this makes more sense.
Yeah.
So I had two more things to say about foreshadowing and Easter eggs. One is, I feel like when Pepper is talking to Tony about ultimately trying to sort of convince him to help with the time travel issue, the issue that Cap and Natasha and Ant-Man brought to Tony, and she says, will you actually be able to rest? Right. Like she knew the severity of what it would mean, the severity of the situation and what it would mean, to him as a person, as a man, as Iron Man, but also what it would mean to everybody, the world and everybody that would it affect. But then when Tony dies, she says, "You can rest now." Right. So I think I like that foreshadowing a little bit about, I think that she probably knew a little bit about what it would mean. And then at the end, when she says, "Now you can rest," I thought that was really sweet. And the only other thing I wanted to mention on Easter eggs is Budapest. Right. How much did you love that? So when did we hear Budapest, and what's the significance of that? Do you remember?
No.
So 2012 Avengers.
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, when Natasha and Hawkeye are fighting together, and she says, "This reminds me of Budapest," and he says,
You and me remember Budapest very differently.
"Yeah, you and I remember Budapest very differently." And then they're in a spaceship together in Endgame, flying to Vormir to get the Soul Stone, and he says, "What does he say?" They bring up Budapest again. I thought that was really cool. A little bit of a fan service, I think, but nice little Easter egg. Look up Avengers Endgame Easter eggs on Google. There's a bunch of different articles and fun stuff. So we'd be here forever if we went through all that stuff. So, all right, Jacob. So that was
I think
our
we
number.
might be here forever since we've only done one.
Okay, we'll go through these quickly. All right, so our number 9 most impactful favorite thing about Endgame was Hulk. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's so we see him eating breakfast, I think it is, or is it lunch? I think it's breakfast. We see him as Professor Hulk from the comics. He's talking about how he combined the brains and the bronze. So now he's Professor Hulk. He's smart, but he's also like
The Hulk.
Hulk, yeah.
And it's so satisfying to see Hulk finally in the movie, because one of the things I actually did not like all that much about Infinity War was that the Hulk didn't make an appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even
But wasn't that part of the storyline?
it was part of his story arc, and whatever. I understand, and I love that there was the moment we get to see Hulk again, but I still missed Hulk in Infinity War. And we didn't even see him at the beginning of Endgame. He was still using Hulkbuster. What's up, Jackson?
I like how it shows that it took him a while just to get back to actually Hulk.
It took him a while to get there. Like it was this growth of a character to become Professor Hulk. And I wish we could see a little bit of I'm sure the movie would have been much longer, but a nice little montage about him working in the lab to get to that spot with the gamma radiation and stuff. Yeah. Did you have something else, Jake?
Back to the breakfast scene. And then who goes to breakfast with him? It's
Ant-Man, Cap, and Natasha.
Yeah, all right. So then someone brings up the time heist, and he talks about how that's not in his general field, so he can't really figure it out. But he still tries, and it works.
Yeah. That whole montage is cool, of Hulk trying to figure out the what is the realm that they go to? The what?
The realm?
Yeah.
Oh, quantum realm.
The quantum realm. That's right. So that was our number 9, Professor Hulk. It was nice to see Bruce Banner back as Hulk and Professor Hulk, and it was a little disappointing for me when he finally met up with Valkyrie again, and because Thor Ragnarok, Valkyrie and Bruce had such a cool Valkyrie and Hulk had such a fun, cool relationship. But then when he sees her in New Asgard for the first time in a long time, he gets so excited to see her, and Valkyrie's like, I kind of liked you better either the other ways. I was like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. I was hoping she would like hug him or something, but that's just the big romantic that I am.
I don't think she's a hugger.
I know, but I wanted her to be more
Grio.
excited to see him.
Yeah, like Grio.
I
Yeah,
don't think
'cause
she does get excited.
They had a great relationship in Ragnarok. But
Why don't we talk about New Asgard while we're there?
go ahead, let's talk about it.
Before we start, the Rooster Brothers tried to hide Professor Hulk and Big Fat Thor.
Oh, big time! Yes.
In the trailers, they
Yes.
purposely cut them out, and then And then, like, every single scene that they were in, they were cut out, and then they were put in for the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was smart. There was, I mean, there was so much efforts made to keep things under wraps, to not release details about the movie, and then there was a whole media
They did
push
that
about
in Infinity
spoiling.
War.
Yes.
They there was like it was like the final scene of the Infinity War trailer, like the last trailer too, and there was a scene of like everybody in Wakanda running and like just running and straight up, but we never got that. And plus, Hulk was in the scene, but we never saw Hulk either.
Right. Right.
They like to do the little CGI tricks.
The beginning. The beginning. So the beginning of the movie, we talked about it being 3 acts, and it was so unpredictable. I think they did a little bit of different things during the trailers that were released, making you think that actually the stuff that happened at the beginning of this movie was like what was happening at the end, like all of them in the ship. And who hasn't been to space? Raise your hand. I love Rocket in this movie, by the way.
I love Rocket in every movie.
So do I.
I want him to live with us.
So I thought that was kind of tricky. It was unpredictable, but very satisfying, especially when Thor finally does what he wanted to do, what he should have done before, and chomps Thanos' head off, which was surprising too. It was like, oh my god, there it is. Finally. But so that was pretty cool what they did with that, making you think in the trailers that the stuff that happened at the beginning was how the movie was going to end. All of them traveling to space and everything. Okay, anything else to say about New Asgard or Hulk?
So.
All right, so number 8.
Wait, one more thing.
Go ahead.
So people are speculating that when Rocket and Hulk arrive to see Thor, like when they walk into his little like room, when Korg's playing Fortnite on the TV, like when he talking about new Master 69, people think that might be Deadpool.
Oh, interesting.
Or like
I wanted to. Well, that's number 6. Like our stuff about Thor. So hold that thought. Yeah. Okay. So number 8 for us, as far as impactful moments or things.
Can I talk about New Asgard?
Go ahead.
Can I talk about Thor's grief at this point?
Hold that thought.
Okay.
We have Thor as a whole number.
Oh, okay. Great.
Natasha and her story arc. That's number 8 for us. I love Black Widow. I love the whole her whole story arc, her growth, her character development.
I gotta see more of it too.
ScarJo, amongst many of the other actors in this franchise, is amazing. I thought she did really, really well. The acting was just on par. So fun. Her story arc is awesome. It's sad. It's like she's got her own epic like tragedy. She becomes sort of in charge of the Avengers as we sort of end Act 1, where we fast forward the 5 years, and she's running things, but she looks so beat up too, and she's coming across that way. So Scarlett Johansson does a really nice job with that. And then once we get sort of into Act 3, after the time heist or during the time heist, well, I would say during the time heist, because she unfortunately meets her demise. But you could see the change in Scarlett Johansson in the character, going from sort of being so depressed and upset and sort of beat up, and then once they start to realize that they might be able to right the wrongs and change things, you can see a glimmer of hope in her, and her Hawkeye reunion / Ronan reunion is a really great scene as well. There's such like an unspoken connection between her and Hawkeye, Jacob, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Like a really like brother and sister, best friend connection. I never saw anything romantic between them. It was always like a brother sister type thing.
I feel like I did very early on in the story lines.
Well, yeah, because
2012 Avengers, the first one.
I understand that because in 2012 Avengers, at like the very, very beginning, when Loki like mind controls Hawkeye, he orders Hawkeye to go kill Natasha, but he doesn't. But he's still under mind control, but he doesn't. And that can seem like a really strong relationship.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like Natasha has a relationship with Cap, Hawkeye, and Hulk.
And Hulk.
Yeah, and never, either one of those relationships never fully realized, but there could have been some sort of romantic connection with all three of those guys. I totally agree.
Yeah.
When we first see in 2012 Avengers, Scarlett Johansson sort of, she put her hand on a monitor sort of sweetly when they were talking about how he was compromised and how they have to get him back. So the relationship was unclear. I mean, it definitely could have been romantic from the beginning, but their connection, their relationship, such a powerful piece of the story, especially on Vormir. When, I mean, we all know we know what was going to happen, right?
When?
On Vormir and how you get the Soul Stone.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and so as fans, it was sort of, there was like, how are they going to do this? So is one of them really going to die? I mean, we knew ahead of time they were going to be bumping into Red Skull, and Red Skull's going to be like, yo, one of y'all need to die. And how they were going to handle that. Go ahead, Jackson.
I feel like when, when Ant-Man said not it, when they're talking about Vormir?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they were like kind of hinting that someone's gonna
Yeah.
It must have been so awkward
Also, don't say yo again.
Okay.
It must have been so awkward when Captain America was returning like all the stones back, and he had to give the Soul Stone back to Red Skull.
Right.
Yeah, and Red Skull still thought that he was dead.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that was our number 8, Natasha and her story arc. I guess we can talk about this now. What's next for the MCU? We've got Phase 4 coming. We'll talk about some of those movies. But we also have a bunch of stuff coming out on Disney Plus. And Disney is giving Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu a run for their money with this new, so much amazing content is planned for Disney Plus. I don't know how I feel about prequels, MCU prequels. We've got WandaVision, so we've got a Vision and Wanda show coming on Disney Plus. We have a Black Widow movie that's slated for next year, I think, or the year after. We have Loki.
Do you like Star Wars prequels?
I liked the
think
Star
anybody
Wars
does.
prequels. Like, I enjoyed them. I think they were but it wasn't the same characters, really. It was very old. It was very old. I'm sorry, very young Obi-Wan. Darth Vader as a kid. I mean, it was not. I'm apprehensive about these prequels. I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I hear that.
So anyway, we have our number 7, Jacob, which is one of your choices, one of your picks, Cap versus Cap.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes.
Talk about that. Why was your favorite scene? So what was happening plot wise?
Well, so Captain America got the scepter, Loki's scepter with the Mind
Yeah,
Stone
you guys
in it.
already talked about this part. You just didn't.
No, we did not.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, this
No,
was
we did
fun.
not.
Okay, sorry.
You were playing tic-tac-toe.
Oh.
So,
And
Cap-
also coordinating teenage activities this afternoon.
jeez.
Go ahead.
So Cap got the scepter. He was about to go down to where they all met up with all the stones, and 3. And he sees him from 2012.
Oh,
And-
that's
and-
right. It wasn't him, Loki as him. It was him.
No.
That's
but,
right.
But Captain America from 2012. He thought that the present day Cap was Loki.
Was Loki.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's why I
So-
thought you guys.
because he
talked
says,
about
"I
that.
found Loki."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they fight it out, and our Cap, he drops his Peggy Carter compass
Picture, yeah.
with her picture. And 2012 Cap's like is really confused by that. He asks, "Where did you get that?" while they were fighting. And then fast forward, now our Cap's stuck in a chokehold, and then he struggles out 3 words: "Bucky is alive."
Yeah.
And then he says, "What?" And then he hits him with his shield.
There was so
Awesome.
many fun things in that whole sequence. And Cap, showing his growth and understanding of everything that was going around, and him using that knowledge to help get himself through this. Like I
elevator scene?
love the elevator scene.
Yeah.
And that was one of my moments, and Jacob and I decided to combine them for number 7, and we see.
I would have loved to see the fight again.
So let's talk about that.
It's
So
so
that's
awesome.
from Captain America: Winter
But
Soldier.
before we go to that,
Yeah.
I just want to hint out one thing. There's a meme that where like Spider-Man sees Spider-Man from like a 60s TV show, and they point awkwardly. And I think the Russo brothers were trying to like reference that
Oh, okay.
when they saw Cap.
Yeah. Little comic book shout out. So elevator scene, what we're referring to is the scene in Winter Soldier. Again, directed by the Russo brothers, one of my favorite MCU movies, where Cap realizes that he's about to be attacked or tried to be taken out by what we learn are Hydra double agents.
Yep.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but they actually work for Hydra.
Is that when his dad calls him and says, "You will be taken"?
No, that's a different movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. You haven't seen that movie.
No.
That's an okay movie.
That's a good
for him to
movie.
see, right?
Yeah, you see Taken. And so we see, Cap in Winter
I have a
Soldier.
very special set of skills. Is that what that's from?
Yes, it is. Cap in Winter Soldier ultimately fights his way out of that. It's a great scene. The fight choreography is amazing. But in this scene, we almost feel like it's going to happen again. Like it's a sort of an Easter egg. They're shouting out. They're calling back to that movie. But instead, Cap is super smart and intelligent and leans over to one of the agents and says, "Hail Hydra," which is great.
He did that in the comics too, because there was a Hydra version of Cap.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So there was it allowed him to escape the elevator with the scepter, which had the Mind Stone, and unscathed. And then he bumped into himself. And then another Easter egg, which I love all these little Easter eggs, was 2012 Cap saying to future Cap, "I can do this all day."
Yeah.
I love that.
And then our Cap is so annoyed by it.
Yeah, he goes, "I know."
Yeah.
So that was great. So that was Jacob's number 7, Jacob's choice. That was good. Anything else to say about that, Jenny, over there?
No.
Number 6, most impactful favorite moments of Endgame is Thor. Just Thor in general. Such an amazing character in Endgame. Again, Jacob brought this up that we didn't see fat Thor or overweight Thor in any of the trailers. So that was a huge reveal. At the beginning of the movie, again, we see the events immediately following, within a couple months, I think, Infinity War, right?
Yeah.
And so we have...
I don't even think it was any month.
No, well,
Tony
what did
said, like,
Tony
21
say?
days.
Yeah, 21 days, so not even a month. And then that version of Thor is who we saw at the end of Infinity War, the short-haired Thor from Ragnarok.
And we saw him
And
at
he
the beginning of
has
Endgame, too.
Stormbreaker and all that stuff. But then fast forward 5 years, Thor is completely changed because of what, Jenny? Grief. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
No, he's really sad.
Why is he so sad, though?
Well, I don't really remember.
Okay,
Well,
I'll
because
say
he
this.
lost his planet place, right?
He lost.
Everything.
Well, Asgard
He
was
lost
never a
everything.
place. It was where their people stood.
Yeah.
He lost his dad, his brother, his best friend,
His mom.
home,
his mom, his hammer, his hair.
his girlfriend,
Not
his
really.
his
Yeah.
eye.
His eye, his girlfriend.
Yeah, no, I
lost
think, but I
everything.
think more than that, he
had
had
nothing-
guilt.
he had
He had
nothing.
survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
And he failed.
He had nothing
Yes,
to lose.
that's what I think it was really ultimately about. Yes, he was grieving all of those things, and at the same time, he had this tremendous amount of survivor's guilt. So I know audiences laughed at all of that stuff. However, I think it was a really accurate depiction of how grief affects some people. That, you know, they stop taking care of themselves, they turn to alcohol, they turn to food, they they become a different version of themselves. It really kind of eats away at them. And I'm glad that they did that. And I'm also glad that it stayed. It was part of his character for the rest of the film. It didn't there wasn't a magical superhero way to get rid of it all. He still was kind of struggling with that. And it was affecting him cognitively too. You know, his brain, he wasn't as quick with his brain either. So I really liked that they did that. They didn't gloss over grief.
Absolutely. And I love that we see so much of his response. He's walking, talking example of what happens to somebody and how someone might experience those things.
Yes.
I love the Rocket Hulk mission to New Asgard, where Hulk is riding in the back of the truck and everybody's looking at him, and they bump into Valkyrie again, and we already mentioned that. And then we get to see, is it Korg?
Korg and Meek.
Korg and Meek from Ragnarok, characters we love, voiced by Taika Waititi, the
It's
director,
awesome.
who signed on to do Thor.
Love and
Four.
Thunder.
Yes, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I love that whole scene. I love the pop culture reference of them playing Fortnite. And I love when Tony refers to him as Lebowski. Shout out to the Big Lebowski movie. I mean, exactly when he looked exactly like the Big Lebowski. What else about Thor? I love the Rocket Thor mission to go to Asgard so he can get the ether.
And she's his mom.
He sees his mom. That whole sequence, and how cool it is that his mom, because she was raised by witches, she's not surprised at all to see him, knows exactly where he came from, tells him not to warn her about her own future. I mean, it's something that he needed so much. And I think we talked about this, Jenny, with Gerald when we
did.
talked to him. But we saw all these characters see something about themselves that they need. Thor saw his mom. Tony sees Howard, his dad, and has an amazing interaction with Howard.
Right.
Cap sees Peggy. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But I love that whole element. And then how much comedy, too, Thor brought to Endgame. In particular, this sort of leads us into the next the next element on our list, but I love the jazzy sort of lounge music we hear playing when Thor is talking about the ether and his whole backstory. He talks about how him and Jane aren't together anymore, that whole thing. I love that. I love how music is used in MCU, but also in Endgame in general. But
Jackson is back. In
Jackson's
case
back.
anybody
Do you put your drink
Hooray.
on the ground from now on, bud? Thanks. Anything else to talk about Thor before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, one thing.
Go ahead.
So, I love how, when Thor's talking about the ether, Ant-Man, Scott Lang is the only one who's like happy, enjoying it. Everybody else is like confused by it.
Or just annoyed by him.
Yeah, and
Also a very realistic depiction of people's responses to someone who's grieving.
yeah,
Like, why can't you just be normal and stop being
Right.
sad?
and what's the character from Ant-Man who like talks really fast?
Oh.
I think that's why, like, talking like I think that's that was reminding him of him.
Yeah.
So he just really, I think
He
enjoyed
liked it.
that.
Yeah. I forget that character's name.
Or it reminds him of Phoebe. No,
More
wrong.
who?
Phoebe. His wife.
Oh, okay. The Paul Rudd Friends reference.
Yes.
I get you, Jenny. I get you. What is Brody say to Thor in that? Rhodey, I mean.
Oh,
Something funny.
I don't think it's during it. It's before it, I think, when he's like sitting on the chair and he has his sunglasses on. And I think either Carol or Natasha says, "Is he sleeping?" And he says, "No, I think he's dead."
Yeah.
Is it that?
I think it's that. Well, I think he mentioned something about him eating something. I don't know. It was funny. But again, Thor had lent a lot of comedy through his whole story arc as well. All right, let's go to number 6. No, whoa, we're on our top 5. Let's take a quick break, and we will finish out the list, and we'll try to keep this episode to under an hour, which gives us about 20 minutes left to do that. So we will be right back.
Welcome to Cinemarks. If you have your tickets, take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Every week, Troy Adams is joined by an array of nerdy podcasting co-hosts.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
They discuss films and television from the past, present, and future. It's always something different on the slate.
Life is a box of chocolates, Forrest. You never know what you're gonna get.
It's always kept fun, spirited, and they attempt to be entertaining.
60% of the time, it works. Every time.
You can follow the Cinemarks on Twitter and Instagram at CinemarksPod.
Go ahead. Make my day.
The Cinemarks podcast is available on Wooshka, iTunes, Spotify, and most other podcasting platforms. We hope you enjoy the show.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, we are back. We are going to talk about our top 5 moments, or impactful things about the Endgame. All right, I alluded to this. I know I can't talk today. I alluded to this in the last, before the break, but how amazing music was as part of Endgame, and how influential the music was, and how it sort of moved the plot along, and it accentuated plot elements and the feeling that people get about Endgame. I mean, music is almost like another character, right, Jacob?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. So I mentioned the cool lounge jazzy type music that was playing under Thor's story about his background and how he started talking about his mom and his loss and all that stuff. And then I wanted to talk about the music that came up. And first of all, that Avengers theme is amazing. There's been lots of different composers through the MCU, but Alan Silvestri probably takes the cake as the top composer, because he did write the Avengers theme, which is so powerful. The feelings that come up for me as a huge fan of the MCU and a fan of these movies in general, the feeling I get when I hear that Avengers theme is just such a feeling of excitement, warmth. I don't know, it just makes me feel good. And we get to hear that at so many moments throughout this movie, different versions of the theme. You can hear it sort of prominently featured. You can hear it in the background. There's actually a couple great YouTube videos about the music in Endgame. You should check that out. I wish I had written them down or remembered them, but great videos about detailing how music was used in the MCU. But we hear the Avengers theme when at the end, the finale fight, when all the Avengers come together, and we hear Cap say, "Avengers assemble." I want to talk about that in just a minute anyway, before we talk about that a little bit later. But we hear the Avengers theme come up at that moment. We also hear Cap's theme when Tony brings him his shield. We hear the Captain America theme song when he gets his shield back, and Tony takes it out of the trunk and says, "Don't lose this again," which I thought was cool. Where else in Endgame do we hear amazing music, Jacob, or anybody else that wants to chime in about this?
Is about to snap.
Yeah.
There's music playing that I don't know when, but it was played before in the MCU. And
Okay.
Like when people thought something bad was gonna happen, but something didn't happen.
Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying. We heard that a lot in Infinity War, I think, that theme, because he was prominently featured all throughout Infinity War, gathering up the stones.
It must have been maybe when Thor was about to kill him, but he didn't go for the head. Maybe.
Right. We also the Endgame theme itself is a really good theme. Jackson, who is our right now, I mean, we all play piano, but he sort of plays piano the most out of all four of us right now. And one of his favorite things to play is what, Jackson? Right now. What have you just learned or are learning?
The Endgame melody.
No, it's the Avengers theme.
No, he knows both.
Oh.
So
really?
he learned the Avengers theme.
The one I'm playing is
The one he just learned is the Endgame theme. So, which I think is really cool. Nice job with that.
You didn't even know it.
What?
Jacob didn't know
I didn't recognize it right away, but now that you've played it, I was like, oh, that I know exactly what that is.
I thought it was the Avengers theme.
Because
no, he does play the Avengers theme as well.
The beginning, like they play it really. The beginning of the song, they play it really softly. So like, and when I am watching the MCU movies, I'm not really focused on the music too much. I focus on the storyline. So I didn't recognize the beginning when he was playing it.
Okay, yeah, but I recognize it now, and it sounds really good, Jackson. So nice job with that. So anyway, that was our number 5, music in the MCU, especially the music in Endgame, and how it's used, and it's pretty much a character all, and it's on its own. Okay, so let's go with number 4, and this is a powerful one. So number 4 on our top 10 list of most impactful, coolest things about Endgame is Peter and Tony's relationship. What do you think about that, Jacob?
Well, I just recently, might have been today, I saw behind the scenes of the scene where Tony sees Peter in 2023 for the first time. And it's just like so meaningful.
Yeah.
Where it gives him the hug, like call back to when Peter thought he was giving him a hug when he was just
right. When he opened the door in Homecoming. Yeah. We get to see that relationship detailed and talked about, introduced, I guess, in Homecoming, for the first Spider-Man installment in the MCU. And then we see them grow, their relationship grow in Infinity War. And we talked about this in our last episode about deaths in the MCU. And one of the most impactful deaths was Peter, when he turns to dust on Titan. And then the first thing Tony says to Cap at the beginning of this movie is, "I lost the kid." Mm-hmm. And for me in that moment, and I didn't realize it obviously in the first watch, but this rewatch we did a week ago or so, I noticed that. One of the first notes I made when I was making notes as we were watching this on the second time on the digital download, but the first thing he said to Cap was, "I lost the kid." And he is, he was on death's door up in space with Nebula. Yeah. And he comes down and he sees Pepper for the first time because he didn't know if she turned to dust or not. And then it's the first time we see Captain Marvel with everybody. It's just an amazing scene when we see Captain Marvel bring that spaceship back. And the first thing he says to Cap is, "I lost the kid."
And Tony, he once again references Avengers 2012 when he says, "You said we'd lose together." Well, right? And we didn't.
Yeah, that was a powerful scene.
Yeah.
I wrote that down on different notes, sort of a honorable mention list about how good our DJ was in this role, from all the way from 2008.
Stanley said that he was born to play the role.
He really was. I agree. Yeah, that was an amazing scene when he was like defeated, and he was sitting there on the IV, and he looked so frail, and the makeup was so great. I mean, he looked like he had died. But yeah, that was an amazing scene, amazing acting from Robert Downey Jr.
And that's another foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Like, he almost dies, and then he ends up dying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
At the end.
And the other part of Peter and Tony's relationship, ultimately, I think that's part of why Tony decided to help, and go and help figure out time travel and all that, was I think it was a picture of him and Peter together he saw in his kitchen or something. There was this moment where he was like, I lost the kid, and then I might have a chance to bring him back. And I think that is what ultimately was the inspiration and motivation to say yes to Cap and go try to figure out time travel and do this thing. And then you had already mentioned this, Jacob, but that reunion with Peter and Tony was so great. And then when Tony dies, we see Brody, we see Pepper, of course, and then the other person we see at his deathbed up by his side is Peter. So that it's just such a powerful relationship. So that was why it was number 4 for me, was Peter and Tony.
The funeral callback again from Iron Man. I don't know which one it was. When it said, prove that Tony Stark has a heart.
Yeah.
On his repulsor, what's it called?
Yeah, the chest piece there. Yeah. Okay, so number 3. Do you guys have anything to talk about Spider-Man and Iron Man over there?
I thought it actually sort of played out the kind of father-son relationship that Tony never really got to have with his dad.
Oh, good.
That's a nice flower drawing, Mom.
Thanks, isn't it pretty?
Yeah.
Jenny likes to doodle.
That's how I pay attention.
That's a good point, Jenny. I think that we saw that played out in 1970 when Tony and Howard meet up,
right?
A little bit, but yeah, that's a good point.
But prior to that, I think Tony didn't really have that opportunity with his own dad.
Right. Jackson, did you have something to say too?
I think he just wants to breathe into the microphone.
I don't think. No, he had something to say. Do you want to talk about Spider-Man?
I think their relationship is like, I don't have a word for it, but I like how like in the last Spider-Man movie, like Spider-Man actually made his own suit instead of Tony making it. Like he's like not taking, he's not taking the role, but he's like learning from him. That's
really awesome. That's a really good point.
Yeah,
that scene when Happy rescues Peter in Far From Home, and he does. Basically, he has this suit making montage that we've seen Tony do a bunch of different times.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, that was good, Jackson.
You're really smart.
Very insightful.
Yeah.
That comment was worth all of the extra noise you're making through this entire episode. Okay, we have top 3 left. We're going to try to finish this episode out fairly quickly.
I know. Coming over.
I want to thank you. Nobody really wanted to record today, and I appreciate you guys jumping on to do this recording. And something that really excites me.
I just wanted to clean because we have company coming over.
I know. We try to. This is
blah.
This is the challenge with doing a podcast part-time. We don't do this full-time. When we record, we try to fit it in amongst all the other things going on in our life. So I appreciate the 3 of you fitting this in today. So number 3, Jacob, this was your big one. Mm-hmm. The number 3 moment in Endgame. Go ahead.
The snap. Tony's snap.
Tony's snap.
I am Iron Man.
I am Iron Man. Such an epic moment. Probably maybe my favorite line, like spoken line in Endgame, was this moment. And again, Jenny, this was what we were talking about with the reshoot. What is going on over there?
I don't really know.
Okay.
You can't keep teenagers. If I was supervising you as a teacher, I would say this is too long. Of course, you've got this from even our boy dog.
Oh my goodness! All right, people are getting restless. But Jenny, this is what we were talking about with the reshoot. So the ending of that we know when Thanos says, "I am inevitable,"
Right.
which he said a bunch of different times throughout
Right.
the movies. And then we realize that Iron Man, Tony, somehow, using his nanotechnology, figured out a way to steal the stones back off the gauntlet.
Right.
In that most sort of secretly. And then we see that he has the stones, and he says, in response to Thanos, "I am Iron Man."
Right.
That was not the original ending. And I can't quite remember what the original ending was. What was it? Jen?
Cap's head got chopped off.
What?
Yeah. OG
What?
ending. Thanos is gonna cut his head off.
I would. And so the whole like him going back in time to be with.
Peggy wouldn't happen.
Oh, I would have. That would have.
Yep.
Then I would be sitting here saying that was the worst movie ever.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been
I am
happy
never
with that at
seeing
all.
another
Yeah.
Marvel movie. Is that true?
Yeah.
They actually filmed that?
No, they didn't film it, but in the writing, they were gonna have Cap's head chopped off.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad they didn't do that.
With Thanos' helicopter blade thing that he.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Dumb shit.
But, yeah, a number 3 moment, probably, I mean, the last 3 on our list, the top 3, probably could have been interchanged for number 1.
Yeah.
But that was just so amazing. And Jenny had mentioned that she cried a bunch of times during this. I cried a bunch of times. One of the times I had tears in my eyes was at that moment when he said, "I am Iron Man."
I had to cry into my hoodie because we didn't bring any tissues.
And that moment in Iron Man 2008, Iron Man 1, when he's supposed to
Iron
be
Man.
what?
You keep saying Iron Man.
Iron
yeah,
Man.
Dad can't talk sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ask
Iron
him
Man.
to tell what a train
Iron Man.
runs on. Railroad.
Yeah. Okay.
Can't talk. Okay.
Stop making fun of my speech. So at the end of Iron Man 1, when Tony is supposed to be discreet and not share that he's Iron Man, like his secret identity is Tony Stark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he breaks the superhero movie mold.
Right.
You know, Bruce Wayne never comes out in any of the movies we've seen anyway that he is Batman.
Right.
You know, we've never seen Clark Kent, never
Right.
tells anybody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The MCU breaks the mold with I Am Iron Man. And such an amazing, epic way to end the first movie in the MCU. And then we see it ending this last movie in the Infinity War saga. So really, really amazing moment. Okay, number 2, Jake, where are we at now?
We're at.
Was this your number 1?
Might have been.
Well, we moved it to number 2 because we have a really, anyway.
We got.
Go ahead.
So, before we're gonna lead up to this, right? So, the whole scene. And, so when Thor and Thanos are 1v1ing, just them two fighting,
Yep.
Thor summons Stormbreaker, and people think that when Thanos grabs it, it's because he's worthy. It's just the energy that's coming towards Thor. He just like redirects the energy
Right.
to like his chest.
Thanos would definitely not be worthy
No
to
way.
wield Stormbreaker.
And then when the Mjolnir goes flying and hits Thanos, and it comes back, and we see Cap wield it. It's awesome.
Such an amazing moment. I literally yelled in the theater.
I think the whole theater did.
I was just it reminded me of, you know what I'm going to talk about?
I don't know, but we have 4 minutes, so
2007 Transformers came
Oh.
out for the first time. Okay.
yeah. You were
The-
too little. It was just you and I in the theater.
Yeah.
During
Well,
this
we went with
moment.
a
I wasn't
friends of
alive.
ours. We went to like the midnight showing
Yes.
on opening night.
It was similar. It was a full
Oh,
theater.
full
and
theater.
So it was a very similar experience.
a bunch
Cheering,
of clapping. Fanboys were there, right? Jenny, me and my buddy were there. We grew up watching Transformers, and we brought our wives.
Who did we go with?
Steve.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Okay.
And so the moment when Optimus Prime transforms out of truck mode, vehicle mode, and we see Optimus Prime on the big screen for the first time, and he says to Sam, I am Optimus Prime.
Yes.
The whole theater lost their mind. And that moment for me was when Cap wields Mjolnir.
I actually think that was another reason I really liked this particular film is we all except with the exception of Black Panther for me, we have seen all of them, the exception of a few for Jacob because he was too young in the beginning.
Young, yeah.
We saw all of these movies in a theater.
Yes.
And often we've seen them in a full theater or full-ish theater, but this was a packed theater on opening night, and there was this fantastic
nothing
energy.
like it.
And I feel like that does change things when you have a good energy in the room. Just like the energy in the room right now is a little off the wall. It's changing things.
We're just about at an hour, so we got to finish this up. So anyway, number 2 moment, Cap wields Mjolnir. Such an amazing moment. We see...
I'm hoping that number 1 is a particular thing, so let's go.
Well, that might have to be honorable mention. But listen, we see Cap take Mjolnir with him when he goes to put all the stones back, which I thought was really cool. Here, you take this. And then that moment in the big battle fight, there's so much going on in that fight. I mean, we could do a whole episode on just the fight, but when Thor goes, here, you take the little one. I like that part. That was funny. All right. Anything else to say about Mjolnir before we get to our number 1?
No.
Okay. Number 1 moment starts off with a callback to Winter Soldier. Jacob, know what I'm going to say?
Again.
Yeah, call back to Winter Soldier. When Cap was jogging in Washington, D.C. Go ahead, Jackson.
I had someone else to say. I know what you're saying now.
Oh.
But like he says, like, on your left.
On your left.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's about to happen. We see some circles, some Doctor Strange circles. What are those called? Energy circles?
But
I don't know. Start to
it
form.
wasn't Winter Soldier that's like...
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was. Because that's when we first meet Falcon. Sam didn't say it. Cap said it to Sam when he was running. Yeah. And now Sam said it in this movie. And so the number 1 moment is Avengers Assemble. But that started out with... Hold that thought, Jackson. I know you have your hand raised, which I think is awesome, by the way. You raise your hand. We see Thanos and his gigantic evil army arrive and empty out of all the spaceships. And we're like, how are they going to get out of this? Then the next thing we see with Cap sitting there with his broken shield, he straps it on tighter, right, Jake?
No, and he straps it on because he's strapping up a open gush. Like he's got a big wound in his arm.
Yes.
Straps it up with
he's like getting ready to just fight to the death, and then we hear Falcon say, Cap on your left. And then all those circles open up. Go ahead, Jackson.
You know, Black Panther wasn't supposed to come out first. Sam's supposed to come out first.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I like that Black Panther came out first.
They did it because like Black Panther was one of the first people to actually go. So that'd be good for everybody to be back first.
What do you mean?
Oh, yeah. On the snap.
I see.
Yeah, but it was originally written for Sam to come first because he talked first.
Yeah, I like that though. But I like that they made Falcon fly in, not just walk in. So that was good. So that's our number 1 moment. Avengers Assemble. Again, I think I cried. And then we hear the music. Oh my God. It was just such a great moment. Such a great movie, by the way. We do have a couple of honorable mention things. Jenny, talk about your thing.
Oh, when all the females.
Yeah.
I love that there was that sort of sequence where they really needed the female superheroes to kind of provide some reinforcement, and they were all together. So there was a kind of a similar moment to that.
Yeah, that was
good. Are
good.
they called something?
A-Force.
A-Force?
Well, it's not like them specifically, but it's like...
But that's a
A-Force
callback.
is an all-female...
All-female team.
Yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah, that was good. It was really good. We see the Wasp.
And,
we see
Pepper, too.
Pepper. Mm-hmm. What's her official name?
Pepper Potts?
No.
Oh.
When she's... What is it?
I just had it.
Iron Wife.
No.
That's you. You're the Iron Wife. Mrs. Iron. Ironheart. Ironheart.
Oh,
yeah.
That's cute. Okay. What's the daughter?
Morgenstern?
No. Iron...
Oh, I made that up.
Oh, you made it up? She doesn't really become
She should be Iron Girl.
That's what I thought.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I love you 3000. the funeral scene. That I mean, that is part of one of my honorable mentions. One of the last things I wrote. Quill and Gamora's relationship. I don't know. I mean, there's so much to talk about. We could do like a 3-hour episode of talking about Avengers Endgame and the MCU in general. So, amazing movie. I love that we have this as a family, this connection of enjoying these movies, enjoying the MCU. And there's a lot of stuff that we enjoy together, Disney and Star Wars and all that stuff. But, we saw the MCU begin the same year you were born, Jacob. And so it's literally been just this journey we've all enjoyed together. And I want to talk about real briefly, again, what's coming next in the MCU. Jacob, how do you feel about Phase 4?
I'm very excited. I'm
You
sad
are?
that we had to wait so long.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited too. There's a lot of cool things that are coming, but I'm just a little nervous about, again, seeing those prequels.
Can I do a quick rundown of what we're seeing?
Please, go ahead.
All right. So for movies, we got Black Widow, The Eternals. We have Thor: Love and Thunder, which is supposed to be Jane Foster as Thor, but
Yes.
of course Hemsworth will still be in it. And then we have Blade, which might be rated R, first rated R movie in the MCU. We have Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness, which Wanda Maximoff's supposed to be in it, and it's gonna be the first horror movie.
Yes.
And then
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi, the
Yep.
first Asian-led superhero MCU movie. And then I think is that all the movies? And then Disney
I think
Plus?
so. I've got it in front of me. Black Widow, you said, The Eternals, Shang-Chi, which is part of the Iron Fist universe, right? Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Doctor
Come on.
Strange, Thor: Love and Thunder, and then we've got the TV series.
We have the cat. I don't know.
Falcon
Falcon
and Winter
Winter
Soldier.
Soldier. We have WandaVision,
Loki.
Loki, Hawkeye.
What If? I didn't
But-
know What If was planned for the TV. I thought it
Oh,
was a
yeah.
movie, but
No, they're gonna have a bunch of episodes about it's gonna be animated too.
interesting. And then, of course, Loki. So in Hawkeye, again,
Yeah.
I'm fine with the TV format because I've really enjoyed the Netflix MCU stuff, Jessica Jones and all that, Iron Fist and Daredevil. I've also enjoyed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I wanted to shout out people, if you've not into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it is part of the MCU. They don't do a lot of crossover. They did some crossover early on. We saw Nick Fury. What's the woman warrior Thor? What's her name?
Lady Sif.
Lady Sif. We saw, Jacob is like the encyclopedia of Marvel. We saw her early on in one of the seasons. So there isn't a lot of actual crossover yet, but it is part of the MCU, and the storyline that's going on right now is really cool. I think season 6 just ended. They do have a season 7 coming out, which may be the last season. If you haven't checked out Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. yet, if you're a Marvel fan, check that out. If you love Agent Coulson, definitely check that out. But I don't mind the TV format. I'll enjoy that very much. But again, I just don't know about the prequels. We'll see what happens. Any final thoughts? Anybody that's on the mics right now?
No. When is the next MCU movie?
2020.
We have to wait a whole
Black Widow.
year.
It's Black Widow
Black
next
Widow's
spring.
the next one.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's coming out.
Is
in the
that
spring.
longer than usual?
No.
Because Spider-Man just can't. Isn't there
yeah.
usually like a May and a November?
Well, that's because it's a new phase.
So there's a little bit of a pause.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. I mean, yeah,
Okay.
we saw again the
It's
first
like a new TV season.
the first time.
I got you.
We've had an MCU movie without a post-credit scene. Sort of was saying, "Oh, this phase is over. The Infinity Saga is over." You know?
Okay.
So, any final thoughts, Jackson? Thanks for participating. Your comment about Spider-Man was really cool, so I appreciate that. Jacob, thanks for being kind of my co-host
Got
this
it.
episode. No offense, Jenny.
Oh no, for sure. I actually, for a
All
moment,
right.
I was thinking like maybe this should just be Jacob and Josh.
All right, everybody. Thanks for humoring us in this pop culture heavy episode. If you're you probably didn't tune in if you're not a Marvel fan. So if you did tune in and you don't really care about these movies, but you just like Changing Perspectives, thanks for hanging out with us for this little bit. So I think that is going to do it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. You can learn more on this by going to your TV and downloading all of those MCU movies and checking them out. And again, I'll try to post some links to those cool videos on YouTube about the music in the MCU, so check that out as well. Everybody, please follow us on Facebook at Changing Perspectives Podcast and on Instagram at Changing Perspectives Blog. You can check out our website by going to changingperspectivesblog.com or send us an email to changingpodcast@gmail.com. Go ahead and subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Say bye, Jenny.
Bye, Jenny.
The Changing Perspectives podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Dizzy Bird Studios. Please visit Dizzy Bird Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/DizzyBirdStudios.